Jesus, Lord, our hope, we lift eyes to you, exalted one. We lift eyes to you, it's where our help comes from. Our hope is found in you, Jesus, Lord, our hope, we lift eyes to you, exalted one.
We go again, my mind racing, and I can't seem to win. All these crazy thoughts and feelings, it's like it never ends until your voice breaks through my noise. And I know I'm not alone, not alone. Away with the distractions, I wanna hear what's true. The only words that matter, they come from you. I'll just be quiet, let you speak through the silence. Here I am, no more hiding. You are in this moment, I won't fight it. I'll be quiet. I don't need to know what comes next. Tomorrow's in your hands. I can trust you with my future. You're already there. I hear your voice, call me forward, and I know I'm not alone. Away with the distractions, I wanna hear what's true. The only words that matter, they come from you. And I'll just be quiet, let you speak through the silence. Here I am, no more hiding. You are in this moment, I won't fight it. I'll be quiet, I'll just be quiet, and let you speak through the silence. Here I am, no more hiding. You are in this moment, I won't fight it. I'll be quiet. Oh, quiet. God, you're here in the silence. Here I am, no more hiding. You are in this moment, I won't fight it. I'll be quiet.
Faith holds nothing on the providence side, no. No longer bound to things of wood and stone. When all I had to offer was my worst, you saw my heavy heart and loved me first. You crashing down what was left. You were there all this time, like a river running through my veins. Carried me all this time, splinters buried in your
times, 1,000 years, my soul will sing.
You saw the crushing weight of all my hurt. You knelt and wrote forgiveness in the dirt. And one by one the stones fell within there. One by one my accusers walked away. Nothing left to throw, they made it wrong. Knowing only love is what you saw. Come on, you were there. Lift it up. All this time, like a river running through my veins. Diamond in the skies upon the ground, you carry me.
If ever now my heart cries, hallelujah. If ever now in the wonder of your grace, 1,000 times, 1,000 years, my soul will sing hallelujah. Ever now in the greatness of my sin, ever now in the brightness of your peace. Jesus, on this rock I'll sing your praise. Peace, bring it all to peace. The storm surrounding me, let it break. At your name, still, call the sea to still, the rage in me to still, every wave. At your name, Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus. Call these bones to live. Call these lungs to sing once again. And I will praise Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus.
you might wonder, can't wander away. And my restless heart can rest inside your grace.
Voice in the silence, revealing where your heart is. You're the arms that hold me, my solace, my sanity.
So much for singing out with us. Enjoy the rest of the service.
security. So anyways, good to see you today. Thank you so much for being here. Lots of good things are happening in our lives this week. I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you so much for your attendance. And also, if you're watching this online, thank you so much for taking your time to watch what we do here online. You value us by giving us your attention and your time. Today I want to talk about some things that are happening at Suncoast. One is the oil change. I haven't announced this for a long time, but the end of January 30th, is the first time we're going to be offering for those who really could use a hand up and help. We will change the oil of your car and filter. Often we wash your cars and vacuum them as well. Now, we have been in some cars that are very hard to find the carpet. We just do the best we can, so just let you know. So if that's you and you want to, and you need a little boost up financially, you could use the encouragement. All you have to do is sign up in the at the Grand Central out in the Grand Hall, and you can make just basic information: car, model, what make it is. And ladies, red is not enough. We need something a little more specific because you buy the filter and everything. So the guys are anxious to do that. Our garage is finally completed, certificate of occupancy, everything's good, and it's quite an upgrade, and we're anxious to do that. So that's one of the things. Second thing I have today are these oranges. One of the neighbors that lives on Hawkins Road who attends here, he grows these, has a big orchard, vineyard, whatever it is, Orange Grove. Thank you. Nobody said, I just read your mind. Orange Grove, sugar bells and honey bells. And what we're doing for this, because he's generous, we don't want to not take him up on this, but if you'd like to pick oranges today from 10 o'clock until 1 o'clock this afternoon, you can get a bucket of these for $10. And all the money that comes in from that simply goes into our benevolent fund to help people. So if you'd like to do that, if you don't want to pick them, I think the teens that pick some, pre-picked them, you have to pay $12 to get child labor. So that's coming in. But that's available for you. This is really a good deal. It's a lot of oranges for $10. So if you'd like that, go to the Grand Central and they'll tell you about it. If you want to drive there after the service, just go down Hawkins Road toward the interstate. It's about 3 blocks. You'll see a big Suncoast banner and a sign that says turn here. Go back the lane. You'll go right to the Orange Grove, and you can pick a bucket of these yourself, or they'll pick them for you, whatever you want. But just see Susan or somebody at Grand Central. They'll tell you more about that. The last thing I want to tell you is about Suncoast Cares. Suncoast Cares is a website that we've operated since the first stimulus package came out. And someone said, I don't really need the money. I have a full-time job. And they donated their proceeds to Suncoast Cares. Since then, many have heard about that, and we've received $45,000 approximately in Suncoast Cares that we've distributed 100%. So there's a suncoast-cares.com. If you want to participate in that, go to the website. You can click the button that says donate here. You can donate. If you say, I need help, click the second button, and we'll help you. It's for those in Sarasota County. We want to try to make a difference in your life if you need some help in those areas. So that's what's coming up. I wanted to remind you of those 3 things, and I'm glad you're here. Over the last few weeks, we've been in this series called Values. The first week we discussed what are our values and how important are they, and they're part of the structure of our nature are having values. And that first week we laid the foundation for values, and that foundation is this. If you don't have a foundation, no matter what your values are, they're probably not going to last. But we talked about the foundation of Christ, the foundation that we find through the Scriptures, and then we're helped by that foundation. Because give me a strong place to stand, and with the fulcrum I can move the world, but I have to have the foundation first. Last week, Ricardo and I were on stage, and we talked about this theme, your health is your first wealth. And, of course, Ricardo, scrawny guy like he is, all the physical regime he goes through. And we talked about that, but we also talked about not just physical health, but mental health and also spiritual health last week. We got slightly into those 2. We'll talk more about those later. Today, we're entering a new concept of values. This is one of the values we think is important. It's the value of your name. And I'm here today with my brother, whom you've never met, most of you. This is my brother, Ben. And,
Hello.
And thanks for being a part of the stage today. Ben lives in Tennessee, and he, at my request, drove down and to be here on stage with us today just to talk about family values. So let me tell you something, Ben. I want to tell you, I went to my family doctor and the other day, and he asked me this. He said, have you suffered from any mental illness or mental disorder in your family? We never suffered.
No, we never suffered.
Yeah, you got it. It's a joke. Sorry. We have it. We just don't suffer from it. So we rejoice in it along with you and yours. So Ben's the youngest of 9 children in my family. Our father passed away 28 years ago, and our mother's still alive in St. Pete. She's 94 years old. She's had COVID. She's survived COVID, and she's doing very well. But Ben, thanks for chatting with me today about value of our names. So let's start with a little bit of background. We're brothers, and but we also share another thing. You were a pastor for several years. Tell me, what year did you begin pastoring?
April the 11th, 1999.
Specific for him, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, April 1999. And where did you pastor?
I pastored in Largo, Florida for 12 years, and then 1 year in Tennessee.
In Shelbyville, Tennessee.
Shelbyville, yes.
How do you say Shelbyville in Tennessee dialect?
I had to learn this, but you're saying shovel. They say it so fast, they taught me to say, you just say shovel.
It's like a shovel that you dig a hole in the ground?
Because it's a shovel.
Where are you from? Shovel?
Yeah.
Now, I'm Southern. He is more Southern. And that is even way more Southern than what we grew up in. So you pastored for a dozen years or so. And what do you do after pastoring? You did what?
I semi-retired and moved back home to Tennessee. And there we bought a little farm, and or what would be a farm later.
So why did you go back to Tennessee? I mean, why did you go to Tennessee, and where specifically?
The majority of my family are in Tennessee. And so it was really important to us to go back to the home.
At that time?
At that time.
Right. So let me get specific. In the family line, where are you in the order of the kids?
Well, I'm down here. I'm number 9. I'm the last kid. I'm the youngest.
So our mother had 9 kids. Dean, Dennis, Sherry, Jimmy, Donna, Larry, Sandy, Philip, Ben. Say that again. Dean, Dennis, Sherry, Jimmy, Donna, Larry, Sandy, Philip, Ben.
Yes.
So, I mean, my mother called it this way. She said there were the big kids, the little kids, and the babies. The big kids were the first 4. The little kids were my sisters and me. And the babies were you and Philip. So, it was, and my mother, this way it was. Girl, boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, boy. So out of all 9 kids, there was only 2 that has a sibling that are the same gender. So you have a brother, and he's how much older than you?
13 months. And we're like twins growing up.
13 months, how many days?
17, 3 hours, 2 minutes.
Approximately.
Approximately.
So I want to ask you about your first memories in our family. Tell me about your first memories.
What I remember more than anything is that we lived in Nashville for a while, but the majority of my life we lived in the country, it seemed like, and we were very poor. I mean, we were very poor. I mean, I remember Mom going to the store, the grocery store to get groceries, and we would be begging her to buy candy. I was 7 years old, and we'd point out the candy like most kids do, and she would finally end up buying 1 Snickers candy bar and then bringing it home and taking a knife and cutting that up in little segments, and we would all get a piece. Most of us would get a piece. I might have ate his, to be honest with you.
Okay. There was a lot of us, and and you were the youngest, which I think is amazing. But when you look at our sisters and our brothers, it's not quite like sisters and brothers when you come from such a big, huge family. So describe your older siblings to the crowd. What were they like?
Well, I don't remember a lot of them because they were moved out by the time I was born. 2 or 3 were gone when I was born. My oldest sister, Dean, has a son who was my nephew, and he became my nephew when I was 1 year old. So he's only a year younger than I am. So they're the older group and the younger group. Sorry to the older group.
So we don't suffer from a mental disorder.
No.
or we just put the fun back in dysfunctional. It's kind of the one other way to say
do
it.
that, yeah.
So, but our sisters were more like moms than they were sisters, weren't they?
Yes. For me, being the youngest, I was rambunctious a little bit maybe. And it wasn't hide it from mom and dad and you get away with it, doing whatever. It was, I had to clear it through 8 siblings because it's like I had 16 parents or 18 parents. It was just crazy.
Except for Jimmy.
Except for Jimmy. Jimmy teased. He teased. I say teased.
Yeah, I don't say teased. Jimmy was 6 years older than me. I'm 6 years older than Ben. Now, I know he looks older. Thank you for thinking that. But I'm 6 years older than Ben. My brother Jimmy, who, remember, I've talked about him. He passed away of leukemia 5 years ago. And can you believe it's been 5 years since that happened? Yeah. But he was your teaser. For me, I'd say he was the torturer. There's a common bond there. He was just always about not taking life too seriously and just having fun with whomever he was around. And, he showed me every pressure point on my body to where he could create pain, pinching this or your ankle or your everything. And I know that once he trained me, I felt it was my responsibility to train Ben.
Yes.
So
I remember Indian torture and the thumping on the head and all.
I honestly remember this, and this is a terribly dysfunctional thing, but I remember my brother walking by me one day and hit me on the arm for no reason. And I went, "Oh, what is that for?" He said, "Just nothing." I remember walking in the other room, and guess who was standing there? We just passed the love along in so many ways. So let's talk about, we lived in a lot of places, Nashville area. We are Southerners, and, you live now about 50. I say, how far do you live from Nashville? And you normally say?
50 years. I say 50 miles.
But it's 50 years.
50 years is
it's
what he
very remote. And the area we lived in, a small town called Bon Aqua.
Yes.
Bon Aqua is like a crossroads. It is like, for those who've been in Sarasota a long time, it's like going to Fruitville. People go, "I've never even knew there was a Fruitville." Well, yes, that's why they call it Fruitville Road. And there was a Bee Ridge in this area. That's why they call it Bee Ridge. And those who've been around a long time, you remember those little areas. Bon Aqua is a little area. It has 3 things when I was there. A filling station owned by the Thompsons. And it had Cheech's a general store, just a little general store. And thirdly, a sound recording studio. Because Nashville is a place of music. And 50 miles out of Nashville, and when I was there a few years ago, they turned that recording studio into a museum. And as I went in there to see the museum with Ryan and Rita, we discovered that Johnny Cash had recorded there, and Johnny Cash owned several hundred acres in Bon Aqua, and Elvis Presley had recorded there. All these things that we did not realize when we lived there, that these celebrities were coming in or had been through there in the same little podunk town. But why do you remember that as your favorite?
We had a creek running right through the property, and we had a lot of acreage, even though it wasn't ours. It was like ours, and me and my brother Philip, we would go up and down the creeks. It was just like an adventure every day, like Huck Finn, and we just had a blast. That's our favorite childhood home, is being in Bon Aqua. But we were poor, but we didn't know it.
Yeah, we didn't realize we were poor.
No,
we're blessed in so many areas. So let me take this a little bit more. Tell me about your kids, your immediate family. Tell me about your wife. How long have you been married?
We've been married 37 years.
And I don't want to interrupt you there. I just found out something today myself. Tell me about your engagement period.
Well, I met my wife in church, and that's a good place to meet them. And we dated for 2 weeks, and I proposed to her, and we got married 2 weeks later. So
I just found that out today.
It was a little longer than I
what?
thought it should be. But
4 weeks? Where was I? And the answer is, well, you weren't anywhere. But so tell me about how many kids do you have?
We have 4 children.
And their names are?
Jody and Ben Jr., who you've probably seen around here, and Shannon and Jonathan. Jody has 3 girls. Ben has 2 girls. Shannon has 3 boys. And Jonathan is yet to be determined.
Fair enough. So what's interesting growing up with my younger brother is the concept of when did we really begin to know each other? When did we really connect?
Really, it was in our adult years, because I don't remember Larry a lot at home because he went off to college and, abandoned me, the younger.
I call it survival. But at 17 years old, I left home and went to school for 4 years, and went to graduate school for another 4 years in Kansas City. So I really did not live. I was the anomaly in our family. A lot of the tribe stays closely connected.
Yes.
And there's a black sheep in every family. Well, in ours, I was a white sheep. Yeah, my sisters hate it when I say that. So I hope all of you are watching. So, but anyways, it's just kind of needling goes on. So let me start with an enticing biblical message in here, because I think there's some important truths for us today. And we're going to look at this scripture first. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to him and said, I am God Almighty, walk before me faithfully and be blameless. Then I will make my covenant between me and you and will greatly increase your numbers. Abram fell face down, and God said to him, as for me, this is my covenant with you. You will be the father of many nations. No longer will you be called Abram. Your name will be Abraham, for I have made you a father of many nations. So what's interesting to me is God had this conversation with Abram and changed his name. Not a lot, but a little bit. And how did he change it? He changed it from Abram to Abraham. Let me share some of the points. In your notes today, you have 3 different things, and you can fill in the blanks if you want. But names are often associated with meaning. I'm going to tell you the story of Abraham. Not read it to you, but let me tell it to you. In Genesis 17, it's interesting how Abram became Abraham. He was promised land. He was promised that he would be a blessing to the world. The third promise was he'd have as many descendants as the stars in the sky. At 99 years old, he and his wife Sarah had no children, but they had a promise that they were going to have kids. When they heard that they were still supposed to have kids at 99 years old, Sarah laughed. And when the angels of the Lord showed up and said, because you've laughed, you're going to call your kid Yitzhak, that's Hebrew, or Isaac, English, which means laughter. You're to call your kids that. Abram means exalted father. Abraham, and really in Hebrew, the word I-M, is like putting an S on it. Instead of Abrams, they call it Abraham or Abraham. Put an H in there, but the im becomes more. Father of nations. That's one story about names. Let me tell you another story. Abraham and Sarah had the son Yitzhak, Isaac, and Isaac had twin boys. And you know the story, Jacob and Esau. Esau was born first, and Jacob was born second. When Jacob was born, it said that his twin brother was laying there, and he grabbed his heel with his hand. And they named one Esau because he was a red, hairy little kid. And Esau really alludes to the word red in Hebrew. So they called one red, and the other guy, Jacob, they called him heel grabber, which is what Jacob means. So it's interesting how they name their kids based on different things. But there's the red kid and there's heel grabber, also the same word is used as deceiver. And as we read and study Jacob's life, you realize he was a deceiver. When he and Esau were of a certain age, he caught Esau on a bad day, and he said, look, you're the oldest. Let me con you out of your birthright. And Esau, because he was hungry, said, okay, if you'll just make the stew for me, I'll give you my birthright. And verbally he gave it to him, but Jacob, the deceiver, the heel grabber, tricked him. Later they had to go before his father and really lied to his dad to get the blessing. And the story goes on, he put sheepskin on his arms, and when he went to see his dad, he goes, oh, you smell kind of like my son Esau, and you feel like him, but you sound like Jacob, regardless. And he blessed him. It gave him the oldest child blessing. When Esau came in and found out that Jacob had deceived his father and taken the blessing, he was furious, and Jacob ran for his life. He went over to another land where his uncle lived, Laban, and there he worked 7 years to get Rachel to be his wife, and Laban deceived Jacob and gave him Leah. And then he said, well, I didn't want the older sister, I wanted the younger sister. I know you got to take the older sister first, and then if you work another 7 years, you can have the younger girl also. So he had 2 wives, Leah and Rachel. Jacob leaves home without necessarily telling Laban, kind of deceived him. And on his way back to try to amend things with Esau, he has this encounter with God, an angel of God or a man of God. It's a little unclear exactly. But in the camp where Jacob was, he wrestles with this guy all night long. And in the morning, he said, tell me your name. And he said, Peniel, which means you've seen the face of God. He said, but from now on, your name is going to be changed from deceiver or heel grabber, Jacob, to Israel, which means one who has confronted God and survived this encounter with God. One who has gone through a wrestling match, and it really means he has prevailed, Israel. And if you look at the nation Israel, one who has prevailed, it's very true. They had this ongoing wrestling match with God, and they prevailed. So with all that history and all that biblical history, we begin to see there is importance in names. So today I'm going to shift this back to the Baucom name. What is significant, Ben, about the name Baucom to you?
Well, I'm really proud to be a Baucom. There's a lot of us, and it kind of ties us all together, but a lot of pride in being a Baucom.
So you are one of names, you're one of, out of all my siblings, this guy is named after people. Who are you named after?
I'm named after my mom's dad, and his name was Ben Leverett. So that's where I get Ben. And also I'm named after my dad's father, and his name was Vernon. So that's where I got Vernon, Ben Vernon, after both my grandparents.
So when you grew up with a name like Vernon,
Oh boy.
how'd that go?
I didn't like it. I did not appreciate my name until I was a teenager, and Mom sat me down and explained it to me, probably again. But I really started appreciating my name a lot more, and I wasn't ashamed of it. And any teasing that happened kind of flew off of me at that point. It didn't bother me anymore.
But the name Ben got a lot of teasing too, right?
Yes. I got with Ben you get a lot of teasing sometimes. They call you has-been. But also, my son is Ben. And so they call him Little Ben and me Big Ben when he was smaller and I was smaller. But now I don't like that as much. And I don't think he appreciates it.
So your boys are named after people too, right?
Yes. Ben has my name. He's a junior. Shannon has the middle name Wayne, which is after my brother and my nephew that have passed. And then Jonathan has the middle name Lee after my grandfather, Lee, Vernon Baucom. So.
Wow. So it's interesting, all the name stuff. And I got this Larry Mark Baucom. Where did it come from? I don't know. 2 dogs in the neighborhood. So I don't know what my mom was thinking. And most parents, they just come up with names out of the blue like we do. But he was actually a namesake for my grandfather's. And I think that's good that he represents them. I'm proud of that too. Which leads to the second thought. Names often affect our character. So let me ask you, what do you think of, Ben, when I ask you to be up here with me? You're a pastor, and I feel comfortable having you on stage. But what do you think of when I say names?
I think of our heritage. We both carry on the bloodline, the heritage, and we have pride in our name. And it actually helped my self-esteem a lot in my teenager years to realize that our name is significant.
Well, and Baucom is not a common name. First of all, it's not Baucom.
No.
It's Baucom.
Yeah. Or
Thank
Bacon.
you for saying it. It's not Bacon, it's not Babcock, it's not all those different things, but it's Baucom. You say, well, how do I remember that? Just think of a ball come. Just throw the ball to me, I'm an outfielder, ball come to me, and that's close enough. But Baucom, I am also proud of the heritage that I have. Baucom is not a common name like Miller or Yoder or Hirschberger. Well, if you're Mennonite, it's pretty common, right? And in our area, we have a lot of Hirschbergers, so we have some here. So, I mean, it's just not a common name. In 2019, Becky and I went to Scotland, and in pursuit of some of the things we went was to find some of the heritage, because the Baucom name comes from Baucomie, which is part of Scotland. And I went to the Baucomie golf course and the Baucomie Castle, which is about 10 miles near St. Andrew's Golf Course. It's kind of the mother of all golf courses in the world. So it was kind of fun to go back and see that. But I think it's interesting that if we could, summarize our name, somewhere our siblings taught it to me. I don't know where you got it, but I know that Dennis was the oldest, and he taught us being Baucom was be proud of your name. And my brother Jimmy, who is 6 years older than me, he drilled it into me even more than Dennis. But we were all always proud. There were the Baucom brothers, the Baucom sisters. I mean, all of us seem to have a certain amount of pride in our family name. So what I think is important to convey to you, it's okay as you raise your kids or grandkids for them to be proud of who they are. Don't always wish you were somebody else. It's not like, well, I wish I'd been raised with a silver spoon in my mouth. No, I'm grateful for all the things we went through because we are here today and feel good about who we are. If we were to have a family reunion, we talk about that.
Yes.
Just from and the last time we did that was our mom's 90th, 4 years ago. And how would you describe that family reunion? It's up in Tennessee. We had her 90th birthday party. How would you describe that?
Oh, well, it was a little bit chaotic.
Chaotic, dysfunctional, mental illness. But despite all that, we really had a great time.
Yes.
We love each other, just like you do when you have your family gatherings. And there's always one or two that are there. You wonder how they got there. And, it's you look at the gene pool, you wish somebody put a drop of bleach in there. But Baucom, if our mother were to have a family reunion, and we talked about it even this morning, about doing another one, if everyone who was in her downline, not her sisters, just her kids, grandkids, stepsons, all the different things go through, we calculated there'd be over 150 people represented because this one lady existed in the world. We think that's an amazing thing. See, Larry Baucom and Ben Baucom are people. This defines me. Ben defines you and your son. But the word Baucom is a legacy. We consider it a gift. We're proud to be who we are. As a pastor, growing up in the church environment, there's a rumor that goes around the preacher's kids are the worst kids around. You know why? Because they learn it from the layman's kids. No, I'm just kidding. We never told our kids we don't act that way because we are pastors or you're pastors' kids. We did teach them we don't act that way or we choose a higher ground because we're Baucoms. We want that to be so important in their life, and we think that's important. So, Ben, tell me about our brothers for just a minute.
Our older brother was Dennis. He passed at 39 years old. And next in line was Jimmy. And then, of course, you, Philip, and me. But to me, Dennis really instilled the Baucom name. He was, don't embarrass the name. And there are times probably everybody does embarrass the name. But it was not something that we frowned on it,
Right.
Don't embarrass their name.
So when Dennis passed, our oldest brother, one of the things we said, let's keep the Baucom brothers thing going. So we'd go do something. What did we do?
Oh, yes. Those were good years that we did that in Dennis's name. We went down to the Keys and we lobstered. And it was really a blast. Later, our brother Jimmy, in fact, a couple of the years we took our kids. We didn't take the other brother's kids, though. We just took ours.
Just your two and my one. Yeah. And how many times did we take them?
One.
It's called one and done.
One and done.
This is a Baucom brothers thing, not a Baucom and brother and nephews, and they had fun, but we realized it just keep it simple. And our sister's always trying to move in on that deal.
Yes.
They say, "Can we go?" And they'd always ask me, and I'd go, "Let me answer that very carefully. No." It's a Baucom brothers reunion, and it's not including the sisters. And the sisters, they go on cruises.
Yes.
And here's the thing. We have a Baucom brothers thing. They want to come. Don't they have a Baucom sisters cruise? Do you want to go?
No.
Me
not
neither.
At all. No.
I mean,
negative.
Not at all. So it's just a different, so it's kind of like multiple families within the family. But which leads me to the last point of the day. It's this. Names can influence our life journey. So let me get very specific. We talk about family names, Abraham's name, Isaac's name. Now I want to talk about a broader name. The name Christian. I wore that badge for many years until finally I began to understand that sometimes as a Christian it has a negative connotation. So at Suncoast we modified a little and say, we're Christ followers. We follow the teachings of Christ. And the other thing we do, we begin to understand there's an identification not just with Christ, my name, the Baucom name, but also the presence of Christ is my identifier. But there's also an identification with the community. 22 years ago, we created Suncoast Community Church, and you're here, and you may not like the name we call you. We call you Suncoasters. People come to Suncoast, we just embrace them because it's part of our family name. Some people have pride in their family name. Some people have pride in their location. Just curious, how many of you are here from Michigan? Raise your hand. Michigan, you have pride in being a Michigander? Somebody go, yeah, Michigan. Ohio, anybody from Ohio? Yeah, that's right. You hear this Ohio State stuff, you know. Today we hear more of Sweet Home Alabama than Ohio State. I know, just had to get that in there. I'll pay for that in the Grand Hall. But Michigan, Ohio, Kansas City. My wife's from Kansas City. Guess what? There's a football game on today, and she wants to root for the Chiefs, and we're going to the Ohio State Cleveland Browns home to watch the game. And he said, well, who's coming? I said, well, there's good Becky and bad Becky showing up today. I mean, now, we're from Nashville. We're from Tennessee. And one of the interesting things is I don't mind being from Nashville at all, but I don't like stereotypes, do you? I don't like the fact that I'm from Nashville, therefore, because I'm from Nashville, I have to like country music. Now, you're from Nashville. Do you like country music?
I do.
So who are your favorite country music singers?
I like Blake Shelton. I like Garth Brooks, Tim McGraw.
And you know, and here we are, blood brothers. Yes. I'm brothers by blood. I can't name any song that those guys sing. Say, do you listen to country music? No, I don't listen to music very much at all, except a little bit of Suncoast stuff I really enjoy. Am I musical? Yeah, but the reason I don't listen to music is because I'm usually talking on the phone. But stereotypes, I don't like people saying, oh, you're from the South and you talk with a drawl, therefore you must be a Southerner or not too bright. I don't like that stereotype, or even country music. Nashville is Music City, by the way. Nor do I like the stereotype that if you're from New York, you're just naturally rude. I want to tell you, some of my amazing, caring friends, the most caring friends I have, are from New York. And they don't like the stereotype, and neither do I, right? Fair enough? Right. I'm looking at one of them. And if you're from Kansas City, you have to love barbecue. No, you can be a vegetarian from Kansas City. Or if you're a Christian, you're a narrow-minded Bible thumper. I don't like all those categories, but what I do like is this. We are a community who try to love each other the best we can, trying to make a difference for Christ. We follow the teachings of Christ. And how do we make a difference? By showing God's love to those around us. And one of the best ways to do that, ready, is take a big smile at those around you. Because believe me, if you smile at them, there's a good chance they'll smile right back. Let me pray for you. Father, thanks for reminding us today the value that we have in knowing who we are, most importantly, knowing who we follow. Thank you for the presence of Christ that's ours, for the joy we have being part of families, for the joy we have being a part of community. Open our hearts to more of you, we pray, in the name of Christ. Amen. Would you stand, please? I'm going to tell you a story in closing. This story just happens to be about this guy who's right beside me. Ben and Angie bought a house with 10 acres from my sister Donna. We keep it in the family. Her house had burned, a tragic fire burn, and when he moved onto that 10 acres, the house was just a flat wood deck floor. Nothing there. This guy right here rebuilt that house, everything in the house, from the framing to the drywall to the electrical to the insulation. He did every bit of it without a loan, without debt, by himself. He and his wife, and mostly him. The only thing he said he subcontracted out was carpet. They moved in without a new kitchen, without carpet. He said the plywood floors or the wafer board floors, he painted them just to make them tolerable because they lived there. And a year went by, they lived with these wood floors, these plywood floors. And finally, they saved enough money to buy carpet. That's what we did. We're not going to get a loan. We're going to save the money and do it. And I admire him for that. And he's finally got enough money for carpet. And our mother came over, and she sat there on the sofa, and he says, Mom, guess what? I finally got enough money to put carpet on these floors. And she looked down at those floors, and she said, these plywood floors are fine. Don't be getting uppity. That's our mother. She's a lady of encouragement. Thanks for watching, Mom. But here's what I want to suggest to you. A lot of us have a lot of blessings in our lives. And as we follow the namesake of Christ, remember this, as we follow Jesus, humility, submission, doing for others, and for heaven's sakes, don't be getting uppity. God loves you today. So do we. Thanks for coming.